We are down to the final 2 events at the CrossFit Lowlands Throwdown as 5 men and 5 women are looking to move on to Madison, Wisconsin and the 2021 No Bull CrossFit Games. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland with Annie Sakamoto inside the studio, and we begin with the men's competition. After 4 events, it's Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson with a 16-point lead over Adrian Mundwiler for first, but it is close after that. Just 11 points separate second place from 6th. Events number 5, rowing, handstand walking, and legless rope climbs. The distance and the reps decrease as you work your way through the event, and that handstand walk is not one contiguous straight line.
Right, the athletes have to switch direction every 5 meters. They don't have to kick down, but they do have to switch directions. Now, thinking about this handstand walking coming on the heels of all of the muscle ups that they did yesterday and the legless rope climbs that are ahead of them, I think this might be more of a blessing than an annoyance for a lot of these athletes.
Let's get you down to our featured matchup. Jeff Brightwell and Jacob Hebner on the call for the men, and they begin with the box assignments presented by CBDMD.
Well, getting ready here for Lowlands Throwdown Virtual Semifinals. It's the final day, and this is event number 5. You will see the event description, and on the lower part of your screen, you'll see a progress bar on the upper part. Again, event number 5, 200 points on the line here today. Jacob, this event, an event number 5, there is constant moving, but only 71 reps here, and we started out with the 2K row.
Yeah, it's funny. Remember how we talked about in day 1 how you were like, that's 400 reps of this workout. Now it's only 71, but it doesn't really do justice to the grinder of the workout. So day 3 here, in my mind, kind of harkens back to day 1. Day 1, we had a grinding workout. We had a sprint workout. We had the same thing today. We're starting out with the grinder. We're into with the sprint.
Do you have a 30-minute time cap here on event number 5? And we were talking, Jacob, it's funny in the games, you'll try to maybe bait some rookies into the games if you're that kind of guy. Like I'll just admit that I am in the gym. You get a new person in there and starts off with something like this 2K row, and you kind of lean over and go, if you don't do this in 6.5 minutes, you're just done. So you need to lay the hammer down. But can't do that here in the virtual competition.
Yeah, I won't name names, but I've definitely seen many games veterans, and I've been a part of that too, where it's like, hey, this place sets for time, man. You got to go broke on this if you want to do well, just to see if they do it.
In event number 5, you're going to have a 2K row, a 1K row, a 500. So you're going to have 3,500 total meters of rowing. So let's talk about, these guys are experienced, these athletes are experienced, they know their paces, but for someone that might try something similar to this, tell us about pacing. How would you go about this? In fact, I believe you had told me that you did test this one out.
Yeah, so I've tested the majority of these. I think it's obviously beneficial to test the workouts out before you can speak intelligently on them. And so we tested this out yesterday, and I believe I rode my first 2K, might have been a bad decision, in around 7 minutes and 15 seconds, which comes out to be about a 145 to a 148 pace for the whole thing. I, of course, probably started like a 143 like an idiot, and then probably ended somewhere around a 148. So I'm expecting to probably see that across the whole board here, probably a large majority doing something very similar, about a 145 to a 148 pace. They're smart enough to know that 2K isn't for time, man. You got to get off, and then you got the real work starts.
Let me tell you a little bit about these athletes while we have a couple of minutes where they're standing overall. Let's start in the upper left-hand corner. Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson right now overall coming into day 3 in first place. In event 3 yesterday had a second place finish, followed up with a 4th place at event number 4. The upper middle, Adrian Mundwiler, unaffiliated out of Switzerland yesterday. Got off to a 12th place start in event 3, but really roared back in event 4 where we got a 3rd place. Sits tied for 2nd in the standings. Sam Stewart, upper right, at a C2F CrossFit in Dublin, Ireland. 10th place in event 3 yesterday, comes back with a 5th place in event 4, and again stands tied for 2nd in the overall standings coming into day number 2. Let's go to the bottom part of the screen, starting in the lower left. Uldis Upenieks out of Riga, Latvia, 3rd place in event 3, but then struggled a little bit. 16th place in event 4, but he had built up a nice base of points, so he sits in 4th overall. Henrik Haapalainen out of Finland, CrossFit Basement in Helsinki, in 8th place and a 6th place yesterday, which puts him just outside the cut line in 6th. And then Lukas Grouleff, lower right, actually gets an event win in event number 3, but then a 24th in event 4 puts him in 7th. So just on the outside, but still safely inside the last chance qualifier. So these athletes trying to, especially if you take a look at the lower part of your screen, would like a good event so they don't have to sweat out event number 6 later today for those final 100 points. Again, the top 5 are going. The next 3 will be in the last chance qualifier.
So the first thing I'm noticing right off the bat is, let's look at like stroke cadence. We got some time to talk, right? We got some time right now, so let's talk about some
yes,
stroke
we do.
cadence. So we've got at least 7 minutes, right? So let's look at BKG. Let's look how he's slow, controlled, his cadence. I mean, I can't see his screen, but his strokes per minute are probably fairly low. He's using a lot of leg drive. And then if you look at Uldis, which, look, a different athlete, there's not a right or a wrong answer to this and how you approach this. But if you notice his stroke cadence, his stroke, how often he's pulling, his RPMs is quite a bit higher than BKG. Now, there's obviously different strategies for everything here. That might be how Uldis rows, but I personally like how BKG rows. He's obviously slow, controlled. He's done this before, and he's been here before.
Jacob, expand on that a little bit, because we've all been in our affiliate where we are coaching or being coached, and rowing is one of the first things you learn. You talked about pacing earlier, but you talk about the cadence, and that's that little number in I believe it's the bottom left-hand corner most time on these C2 rowers, the strokes per minute. And if you've got power, you don't want to waste your time going higher strokes. I was always taught, keep it under 30 if you're a bigger athlete, and use the power of your legs, turn it into more of a muscular deal than an aerobic stress on yourself.
Absolutely. So you're probably going to see a lot of aerobic capacity coach Hinshaw right now is probably cringing as I try to explain this, but that's okay. We're gonna give it our best shot. But that number, right, your strokes per minute, is a real good measurement in my mind of efficiency, right? It's just your efficiency at that moment in time, not average, just efficiency at that moment in time. And so, obviously, the higher the stroke rate, I'm okay with that if we're doing a 250-meter sprint per time. Like, if you ever watch, was it Brian Shaw row like the 250 or 500-meter row per time? You'll see that really, really high. That's okay. But in a workout like this for a 2K per time, you're going to probably see, you're right, 24, 25 strokes per minute. It's not going to be too high. You're kind of resting, but, not over 30 probably. You're probably not going to see that over 30.
We've talked so far this weekend about, the challenges and maybe sometimes the benefits of doing these events by yourself. But in an event like this, advantage or disadvantage? Do you find yourself maybe pushing too hard, especially with all the rowing, or can you kind of lull yourself into a pace that's just too slow without having that direct competition next to you?
Yes, actually good. So yesterday when I did it, I actually did it next to a gentleman who just got back from competing at the Granite Games semifinals. So he's a local gentleman. He showed up in the barn. He was obviously probably still getting over Granite Games, so we did it together. Poor guy. And but it was actually nice doing it next to him. I will say it wasn't fun rowing next to him, because you're right, you get stuck in that, am I rowing hard enough? Should I be rowing faster? But it is nice to have someone to pace off of for the handstand walks and for the rope climbs, because then you can kind of look at them and say, okay, it's time to pick up. Let's keep up together.
Well, BKG is going to get off the rower at 7:10, so he is the first off the rower, your overall leader. On the upper left-hand side of your screen, there goes Adrian, upper center. Now, Henrik and Sam are going to be tied for third, getting off the rower, followed by Lukas and Uldis having to finish it up. But it'll go BKG, Adrian are the first two off the 2K row.
So the first thing I noticed, what I really like, is BKG got right off the rower, and his handstand walk is right there, right? He's not walking too far. It's right there next to his rower, and he kicks up immediately. Doesn't chalk up, doesn't towel because he's got sweat, doesn't take a breath, get some water. He kicks right back up. He knows what's at stake here. Obviously, he wants to win this thing, and that's what he's doing right now.
Again, there'll be 5-meter increments, just as we saw yesterday in the events on the handstand walk. Every 5 meters counts as a rep. By the way, on the row, every 100 meters counts as a rep. And that's how you get 71 reps out of event 5. You can find all this information, too, if you're really into studying it. It's on games.crossfit.com. It'll have all the standards and the movements on it, too. But every 5 meters will count as 1 rep in the 71 rep event number 5. If you notice there, BKG in the upper left, he was doing his handstand walks, and what I'm assuming from the video we see is turf, and it's marked out. He may not have liked that surface. He'll move over to the rubber mats over to the right.
Yeah, so he should be getting pretty close. I bet you he's got 10 meters left. I mean, if you look at his cycle speed, some of the guys are pretty close, but a lot of them are like we talked about yesterday. They're stepping away, they're walking away from the line. BKG's literally spinning and kicking right back up. Like he's moving on this right now.
Again, on the handstand walk, hands have to be completely behind the line to start, have to be over on the finish. Typical games type standard. Now here we go. Legless rope climbs. 5 legless rope climbs here to start things off. They'll have to touch either tape, the ceiling, the bar, whatever the 15-foot mark is on the rope. A little bit different than we've seen in regional competition or games competition. This time, Jacob, they don't have to show control on the way down, just get on the floor, although for safety reasons, it behooves you to have some control coming down.
I don't know. What was it? What was regionals 2014? Where it was like 10 rounds of running and rope climbs. It was just like
right.
Just drop from the top. They since got rid of that rule since 2014.
There goes Lukas Grouleff on the lower right. Pretty efficient in getting up. You can use the legs on the way down.
Now, let's talk about efficiency. Let's look at BKG. I think he's got one more. And now look at Lukas go at the same time. Watch how they're both doing similar hand-over-hand rope climbs, but look at Lukas, how he barely uses his legs. Now watch BKG. Watch him like kick and move his legs like he's doing a bicycle. See the difference there? See the difference of how much he's... I mean, like, it's like if I told you have to do 10 pull-ups, right? And strict would be hard. But if you kip, you can use your hips. It's a little bit easier. It's the same thing for Lukas here, right? Like BKG is using his momentum, whereas Lukas is trying, but not like to the full potential he could be doing it.
Now, Lukas is very efficient, as you mentioned. He had a lot of strength in those rope climbs, hand over hand. So Lukas, who I believe was 5th off of the rower, will be the 2nd back onto the rower. So you can already see where he is starting to make a move here in this virtual heat. Again, these are the top 6 finishers, actually 6 of the top 7 from yesterday. Here comes Adrian. He'll be the 3rd coming back onto the rower.
Okay, so it looks like BKG and both Lukas got on the rowers approximately, I'm going to be guesstimating, about 10:30 on the clock. So now I'm interested to see, okay, your first one, BKG, you rode about a 7:10. That puts you about a 1:45 to a 1:46 pace. Let's see if you can keep that, because that's a true measure of like a really good athlete. Now, to clarify, I did not do that when I did this, okay? So I was not rowing. I think I came back and I was rowing like a 152, 155. I was just feeling it. So what I'm expecting from BKG is if he continues to row a 145 to a 148 pace, he's probably going to get off around a little over the 14-minute mark, like a 14:15 on the clock.
You had talked about the strokes per minute and the cadence, so BKG picking up a little bit, you can notice from his 2K, as you would expect with the 1,000. And I take a look at Lukas Grouleff on the lower right-hand side of your screen from Denmark. Still with the very strong, powerful legs. He's probably picked up the stroke count just a little bit, but still trying to use those legs here.
Well, if you look at him row, I'm going to bet, just from looking at this really, really small screen, I'm going to bet he's probably at least 5'9". I bet you Lukas is a taller individual just by looking at how he rows.
Yeah, he keeps the back straight. He's pretty solid on his technique. Not hunched over, which you don't want when you row. He's not, the behind's not touching the heels. Pretty solid, as you would expect an athlete of this caliber vying for a spot at the games to be very technically sound. So again, the first 3 to get back onto the rower for the 1K were BKG, Lukas Grouleff, who made up a lot of time, and then Adrian Mundwiler, still in that top 3. He was the 3rd athlete to get back to the rower for the 1,000. Now this is another descending rep scheme as we saw, like yesterday. They'll go into 40-meter handstand walk, then 4 legless rope climbs. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of this workout, and maybe I didn't, and if not, I will say it for the first time. This workout isn't going to be 1 on the rower. but it can definitely be lost on the road. Like if you, number one, the 2 ways to lose in this workout. You decide the 2K rows for time, right? You got a rookie that rolls in and tells you that 2K rows for 100 points, bro. You got to get it. And so you could definitely lose it by rowing too fast. You could also lose it by just rowing way too slow and feeling really, really bad for yourself. I, for one, did that yesterday. And so when you get back to that 1,000 meter, that 1,000 meter is that 15 round of Fran. Like, you could feel bad for yourself, and that's where you could lose it at. And so this workout, assuming you have legless rope climbs, and assuming you can do handstand walks, which all of these gentlemen can do, obviously, the workout's going to come down to the row.
We'll see how much longer it takes. BKG again, Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson, your overall leader, coming into day number 2. His events, an 11th, a 1st, a 2nd, and an 11th, and he is off the rower back to the handstand walks. And this is going to be 40 meters, so down and back 4 times. Here comes Grouleff from the lower right.
And there you have it, right? So BKG rode that 1K in a 1:36, and Lukas rode it about like a 1:36, a 3:36 overall time. So you're looking at like a 1:45 to a 1:48. So for his pace, like, he rode that for a 2K, and then he kept it for the 1K. I'm gonna tell you right now, Jeff, I did not do that yesterday. It sunk quickly. So this is why BKG is obviously definitely vying for position for the games, and also vying for position on the podium.
Looking at the time, I was checking Lukas. He got off the rower about 14:30. Now Adrian just getting it off. So Lukas, as far as second in the heat, has about a 25 to 30 second lead here on Adrian Mundwiler. So right now, BKG and Lukas Grouleff 1 and 2, and we'll see how close Lukas is able to stay to Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson.
Well, now we're going to come back to muscle fatigue, right? We did the 5 legless rope climbs, and first set of 5 legless rope climbs, whatever, right? It's the second round when you come back. We talked about for the row, it's the second round when you're like, okay, this is starting to hurt. Well, we're going to see BKG's legless rope climbs, how efficient he is with getting his legs in almost like that kipping motion, that like bicycle kick, how well that works for him and how well it works for Lukas.
Again, the event description along the bottom of your screen, and keeping up at home, that red line moving left to right above the top of each athlete is the progress bar to tell you where they are in each event. Right now, it's BKG in the upper left, Lukas Grouleff in the lower right, who are 1-2 with about a 30-second cushion on third place Adrian Mundwiler in the upper center of your screen.
Now, I'm actually curious to see if the other athletes in this heat do a different type of legless rope climb. So what you're seeing now is almost a hand over hand from BKG, and same for Lukas. But I'm curious to see if you see the kip motion, right, where you're essentially kipping, bringing your hips to the rope and using both hands at the same time instead of this hand over hand. Right now, I haven't seen it from these two guys.
And how about Lukas Grouleff? You talk about how efficient and strong he was at the rope climbs. He is the first back to the rower, so he overtakes BKG here in event number 5. You're down to a 500-meter row, 20-meter handstand walk, and 3 legless rope climbs. Boy, and here's where you would like, unfortunately can't have it this year, but if they were side by side or down the same lane here in front of a live crowd, and you talked about it, just how you can hear the crowd starting to rise and start to go crazy. You know that you've got a race on your hand at that point.
Absolutely. So for you guys watching, the legless rope climb I'm talking about, which is not hand over hand, let's look at Henrik. So watch Henrik go up. He'll do a couple hand over hand, and then you should see a kip. And that's the kip I'm talking about. It definitely saves energy. It's not as efficient. It's also not as fast. I'm sorry. It is efficient, but it's not as fast as a hand over hand. So if you can do it like Lukas, like BKG, it's obviously going to save a lot of time.
Well, the race right now, Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson picking up a little bit on this 500-meter row, trying to make up some ground against Lukas Grouleff on the lower right-hand part of your screen. BKG was ahead until this 500-meter row when Lukas was able to get back and start his 500 first. We'll see if BKG surpasses them before they get off the rower. Adrian, although about 30 to 40 seconds behind, still sitting in third overall. Now you'll see Uldis, lower left, is back on the rower. Henrik back on the rower as well. And Sam Stewart trying to finish up. Looks like his rope climbs. It looks like he is making his way to his rower. So Lukas is off the rower. All he has left, 20-meter handstand walk and 3 more legless rope climbs.
So if you look at the splits that Lukas just rode, if we take them into consideration when he started and when he finished, he pretty much has rode the same pace throughout the whole workout. He's rode, like I've said, a 145 to a 148, and the same can be said for BKG. Even though he got off a little later, again, remember, he also got on after Lukas.
This may be Lukas's last 5 meters, and it is, so he's heading to the rope. And BKG still 5 more meters, and Lukas right up that rope. This is huge here for Lukas. He came on the outside looking in as far as getting into the top 5 before they get to event number 6. He came in 6th place overall today. So this could, and again, the finish here is relative to the other athletes in the heat, not necessarily the event, but if he wins this heat, he may be in order here for 100 huge points. And at the very least, Jacob, probably moving into the top 5. And there you go, 1939 unofficially.
Absolutely. So I think what you're seeing there, the difference between, now obviously Lukas did his rope climbs faster and Lukas did a little bit of handstand walks faster, but like we talked about, he also rode, on average, I'd say like 2 to 50 seconds per 500-meter pace faster. And at first you might be thinking, oh, that's not that much time. But when you row 3,500 meters, that adds up to be almost 30 seconds worth of rowing. That he's, on average, rowing faster than everyone in his heat with him.
Well, now you can tell how good he was at rope climbs, how far ahead he was. BKG still trying to finish up his rope climbs. Adrian Mundwiler off the rower onto his handstand walk. So is Henrik Haapalainen in the lower middle, and BKG in at 20:26. So about 45-second difference, and congratulations to Lukas. Did that event very, very well. Mundwiler going to be on the way to the ropes, it looks like. So again, for Lukas Grouleff, should put him in the top 5 with 1 event remaining. BKG likely keeping his top spot with that 2nd place finish in the heat as well. And Mundwiler should end up 3rd here in this heat. Like Mundwiler, this should be his last rope climb in the upper middle. Sam Stewart off to the right on the rope climbs. And that should do it for Adrian.
Way in the back. Sam's way in the back. I don't even know where he's at in that screen.
Mundwiler unofficially 21:31. Trust us, he's doing it. All this. A nice finish at 21:45. He came in at 4th place overall, so that gets him 4th place in the heat. And we'll see if that finishes up well enough as compared to the rest of the athletes in the event to stay inside the top 5. Came in 4th place overall. Henrik Haapalainen is not yet finished here at Jacob, so Henrik could be finding himself on the outside before the final event. Sam Stewart wraps it up at 22:12, so Henrik may be needing a big event number 6 to get back into the top 5 and get that automatic spot to Madison, Wisconsin, or he may be looking at the last chance qualifier. Looks like he is done in at 22:27. So Lukas Grouleff, BKG, and Adrian Mundwiler.
Lukas Grouleff and gymnastics go together like peas and carrots. After smoking the muscle-ups to win event 3, Grouleff decides, 100 points, that sounds good, I'll have that, and flies through the handstand walking and utilizes timed rest from his coach to make quick work of the rope climbs. And for an athlete coming into the day in 7th, 26 points back of 5th, an event win will certainly improve your chances of making it to Madison.
Lukas Grouleff, his 2nd event win of the competition, the only man to go sub-20. Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson will take second. Nikita Yundov, Tommaso Pieri, and then Adrian Mundwiler rounding out the top 5. And as a result, the top 2 will stay the same. Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson, though, increases his lead over Adrian Mundwiler, and Lukas Grouleff moves up to 5th. Sam Stewart sits in 4th place with 372 points, and he spoke with Niki Brazier.
You are coming into day 3 in a top position, able to qualify for the CrossFit Games and really like hang on to one of those podium spots. How did that set you up today to take on those final 2 events?
I don't think it changed too much. I think the workouts are still the workouts, but it's good having a bit of momentum behind you. Like if I was in maybe the 6th place position, it'd be a little more panicky. I was able to not relax. I was not relaxed in any way. I don't know why I was even going to say that. But it was good to know that my previous efforts were worth a lot. So that why can't these coming efforts be worth the same?
Sam Stewart in 4th, Adrian Mundwiler in 2nd, and he's kind of had a Bjorgvin Karl Gudmundsson type of competition, just hovering around the top 5, only been outside the top 5 once.
Right. I mean, BKG is right where we expected him to be, but Adrian Mundwiler, he got 8th place. He had his best finish in 2019 at the Games, and then he DNF'd the Open in 2020. Yeah. He kind of barely squeaked in. He didn't do great in the quarterfinals, and that was due to a knee injury. Obviously, he's feeling a lot better because he's having a great weekend, and I'm just really happy to see this Games vet probably punch his ticket back to the Games.
On the women's side, after 4 events, it's Emma McQuaid who sits in the overall lead by 8 points over Laura Horvath. And then Thuri Helgadottir sits in 5th place. She is 16 points up as far as that final qualifying spot to the CrossFit Games is concerned. Back out to Jeff Brightwell and Jacob Hebner for our featured matchup for the women, and they start with the box assignments presented by CBD-MD.
The Lowlands Throwdown virtual semifinals. This is women's event number 5 on the final day as the athletes vying to become eligible and clinch that spot in the top 5 to go to Madison, Wisconsin. Seeing the athletes along your screen in the top from left to right, and these are your top 6 athletes coming into day number 2. Emma McQuaid in the upper left, Laura Horvath, upper center, upper right, Gabriella Migala. Lower part of the screen from left to right, Annie Thorisdottir. Lucy Campbell in the middle, and Elena Sanahuja on the lower right-hand part of your screen. The event description is in the lower part of your screen, and as this event progresses, you'll see the red line. As you have all weekend, move left to right above the top of each athlete. That'll tell you where they are in comparison with the other athletes in this heat. Again, this is the top 6 coming in from yesterday. We're going to start off with event 5. There's constant movement, a lot of work. Only 71 reps counted, but that's a lot of work to get these 71 reps in. It's going to start off with a 2K row, and these athletes, Jacob, we've talked about it before, and we're going to talk about cadence and pacing and strokes per minute, but without other athletes around you, this is very, very key to know what your pacing is.
Absolutely. So the first question I have to ask, Jeff, if you've got $10, who are you betting on this heat?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Emma's been outstanding this week, and he's got the height on that rower.
And those are great points. Yeah. Those are great points to bring up, right? Like this workout, in general, like we've talked about for the men's heat, can be won or lost on the rower. So what I'm expecting to see is who in this group is a good rower, assuming that everyone can do legless rope climbs and handstand walks. Now, I know, like the previous men's heat we watched or commentated over, Lukas did a really good job because of his speed on legless rope climbs and handstands. Same for BKG. They crushed it. But they also rode really well too and rode very smart. So what I'm looking for, if I got $10 to bet, I'm betting it on someone in this group who is a decent rower, who rows solidly and just gets the work done for the handstand walks and legless rope climbs and doesn't waste time transitioning.
As we talked about in the men's heat of event number 5, if you had rookies, if unfortunately we couldn't not have the Lowlands live this year due to travel restrictions, that's why we're doing it virtual. But in an in-person live competition, here's where it's really fun if you're a veteran like yourself, maybe to bait that rookie into saying if you don't get this done quick enough, there's no way you'll catch up the rest of the event. So you better lay the hammer down right now.
That definitely happened. Let's see, 2019 at the games, we had the second cut, right, which was the row 750 meters for time, and then the light push press and the handstand walk. And there were some rookies that they definitely won that 750 meter row for time.
Let's take a look at these athletes. Again, we told you they're in the top 6. So let's start upper left-hand part of your screen. Emma McQuaid's been just outstanding, very impressive. At a Boundary CrossFit in Northern Ireland, and we expected her maybe to make a push here this weekend. It kind of gets overlooked sometime with the other European athletes, but boy, 5 top 5 finishes: 2nd in event 1, 5th in event 2, an event win in event number 3, 4th in event 4, number 1 overall. Laura Horvath, that's a household name in the CrossFit Games world. She's upper center, an event win in event 1, 3rd in event 2, 9th in event 3, gets her 2nd event win yesterday in event 4. She is 2nd place overall. Upper right, Gabriela Migala at a C23 CrossFit in Belarus, Spain. A 4th place and a 2nd place on day 1 yesterday, a 6th place in event 3, 3rd in event 4, currently 3rd place overall. That's your top 3 from left to right at the top of your screen. The bottom of the screen, Annie Thorisdottir. Boy, she has been around for a while, multiple-time podium finisher, 2-time games champion, and an 8th place, an event win on day 1, an 8th place, a 2nd place yesterday. She is 4th overall, and again, returning from having a child, much like Kara Saunders, and Cara has already secured her spot in the games. Annie trying to get back as well. She sits in 4th place. Lucy Campbell out of the United Kingdom, who gave a nice shout-out to Jacob on Instagram. 9th place, a 4th place, and then yesterday, 5th, then struggled in event 4 with a 16th place finish, but she's holding the gatekeeper spot in 5th place, the last qualifying spot for Madison. And then Elena Sanahuja, lower right. She is currently the first athlete on the outside looking in. She's gone 3rd, 11th, and then 10th and 9th yesterday for 6th place overall. So those are your top 6 here going through the event. The men got off the rower, at least BKG did. What was it, about 7:10, 7:15 in the men's heat? What are your expectations for the female time in the 2K?
Yeah, so correct, Jeff. So men getting off a little over 7, right? Again, for the viewers listening, to make it easy, if we row a 7-minute 2K, we're at a 1:45 500-meter pace on the rower for a consistent 7 minutes. For these ladies, I am expecting that I'll probably see a sub 8. A few sub 8s, or if not all of them sub 8. And then, but again, like we've talked about, you could row this thing in a 7 flat for all I care. I mean, Emma could just crush this row and row her 2K PR, but then she's got to come back to the rower, and that's the hard part and that's why BKG and Lukas did so well in the previous heat, is because they were able to hold consistent paces across the whole workout, and not just going out ham in round 1 and then falling apart round 2 and bringing it back in round 3. So what I'm looking to see is I'll take their splits when we see them finish, and then I will give you guys their 500-meter row pace when they're done, and then we'll compare that to when they come back to the 1K. We'll take their splits there, just so we have an idea of who's staying the most consistent during their row, and did that factor into them winning and or losing this heat we see here.
We talked in the men's heat about strokes per minute, the cadence. So a lot of the males, use the hamstrings, use the quads, get a big pull, use the power of the legs. So you may see them at 24, 25 strokes per minute. The females they'll go a few more strokes per minute to try to maybe make up that time.
Yeah, so let's just choose 2 athletes, and I'm not poking fun at anybody, but let's just choose 2 athletes and just look at them. So let's look at the strokes per minute, or the stroke rate of Gabriela, which is your top right, and then Laura, which is your top middle. Now watch them as they row. You'll notice some key differences. Number 1, Laura, I believe, is probably the shorter, heavier athlete, has a lot of leg power behind her. I mean, we all know Laura's strong, right? And so she's taking her time and resting at the top, which is good if you're a strong athlete. Now the difference, though, between the 2 of them is you'll see Gabriela in her lockout doesn't really lock out her knees. If I'm coaching her rowing, I'd probably ask her to lock her knees out more. Now, this is me calling the kettle black, because I do the same thing, so this is not me judging Gabriela whatsoever. But I'd probably ask her to lock her knees out and probably slow the stroke rate down a little bit, because as we know, the workout after rowing is going to be all upper body. So you need to save that pull and use as much legs as possible, because the rest of the workout isn't any legs, to be honest, other than walking back and forth.
Again, told you earlier, 71 reps. So in the row in this event, every 100 meters counts as a rep. So that's going to be 20 reps down, and that's how the event is scored. Every 5 meters on a handstand walk, like we saw yesterday, is going to be a rep, and then obviously each legless rope climb counts for 1 rep. So we're getting close to that 8-minute mark. Annie Thorisdottir is going to be the first off of the rower.
So just like we talked about, right? She rowed a 740, okay? So if she rows a 740, and all these girls row between, it looks like a 740 to a 750 to an 8-minute, and that puts them all around about a 154 to a 2-minute 500-meter row pace. So let's just take 154 for an example. That's Annie Thorisdottir. So what I'm looking for now is, in her 1K when she comes back, is she still able to hold that 154, or is that going to degrade because she's getting tired?
So your top 3, Annie Thorisdottir, Laura Horvath, and Gabriela Migala, the first 3 female athletes to get off the rower. They're going to go 60-meter handstand walk in 5-meter increments. So that will be a 6-round trips down and back to the tape. Hands have to fully be behind the line to start. Have to get them all the way across.
Yeah, so let's actually take a moment, since we're talking about each group in here. Let's take a look at handstand walks. Okay, if we have to choose one handstand walk that's pretty in this group, the prettiest one, who do you pick, Jeff? Who do you pick?
Annie looks pretty solid, to be honest, lower left. I mean, you recognize good movement pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think all of us, and I for one, have a terrible scorpion leg handstand walk, and it ain't pretty. But we all aspire to have Annie's, not only is it look good in a good arch position, but also she's really fast. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Great handstand walks, honestly.
Yeah, Laura's getting the job done, but you talked about that and trying to get those legs to have that controlled fall forward. Take a look at those legs right there, about midway through.
Yeah, so actually look at Thuri and her way. So she's bottom middle. There is an advantage to moving your legs like that. Obviously, too much of that is probably not good. Too much flailing is not good. But there is a reason for that, and she's actually matching it with her hands. It's almost like, imagine you're walking just on your hands. That's literally all she's doing. When you sprint, your opposite leg goes up and your opposite hand. She's doing the same thing for a handstand walk. There's a benefit to that. I personally don't do it, but there are people who love doing that, and it helps them out. So there's
Tell you what, you talk about transitions a lot and how that makes up ground and time. Laura, as soon as she got done, went immediately to the rope and got the first one done. A lot of times it's just get that first rep done, and then the rest usually will follow. Not always, but Laura didn't waste a lot of time walking around the chalk up. She got done with the last 5 meters, went right to the rope.
Yeah, it's always the first rep, right? It's always, when you get there, you're always like, oh, can I do this first one? Like, can I snatch this? Can I back squat this? Can I do this legless rope climb? You knock out the first one, like we talked about in the snatch workout, your confidence soars. Like, okay, yeah, I could do this. I could chalk up. So I actually like how she got the handstand walk done, got the first one out of the way, and then I'm going to chalk up. But because I know, hey, yeah, I can do this. I've done this before 100 times, and I can do it for 4 more.
You know, and again, in an in-person competition, that's a lot of gamesmanship too. I mean, if you can walk up to a rope or a box jump and you have the athletes to your left and the right, if you can knock out that first rep and just establish that, hey, I am ahead of you, it does a lot mentally. Now, again, that doesn't play out here because they're in the gyms, not around the other athletes.
Laura's just establishing her dominance virtually right now.
Right.
I am ahead of you right now.
You may not know it, but I am.
Okay, so let's take a look at, so Laura's actually done, so I'm going to take her split down. So she's starting the rower at 11:40. So if she starts the rower at 11:40 and she rowed about a 156 her first, I'm expecting her to get done probably around 15:30. A little after 15:30 is probably what I'm looking for.
So Laura Horvath, upper center, currently in second place overall in the standings, coming into the final day as the first on the rower. So she is past Annie Thorisdottir, who should be getting near the end of her first 5 rope climbs. Annie's been a little bit more deliberate, pacing out and making sure she has the rest she needs, because rope climbs aren't things you want to fail. You don't have to try to go up there twice. A lot of times taking an extra 5 seconds can maybe save you a minute in an event if you fail that rope climb. Here's Thuri. She's back on the rower in second place.
So remind me, Jeff, when we get back to the rope climbs, let's specifically talk about the 2 different ready-to-do legless rope climbs and how that plays into what gender you are. As we saw the males in the last heat we commentated over, you'll see a lot of them do hand over hand. And as we look at the females, a lot of them are still doing hand over hand. But surprisingly, the gal who's in front, Laura Horvath, is doing a kipping motion. So I want to talk about when we get back to latest rope climbs and kind of discuss why we're doing that because of the females.
So right now, again, you can watch the red line above each athlete's box. That is their progress bar to tell you where they are in comparison to the other athletes. But getting back again onto the 1K row is Laura, then Thuri, Annie were your top 3 getting back into the rower for the 1K row. And again, lower right-hand part of your screen, that is Elena Sanahuja. She is the athlete that's on the outside looking in, not yet back on the rower, and right now losing valuable seconds because you've got to remember these athletes, where they finish here, they're not just going against each other. There are other athletes not on this virtual heat that right now probably zipping past her that you could see on a regular competition floor, but right now losing a lot of time and maybe falling down that leaderboard if she doesn't make up the ground somewhere.
So I'm expecting for Laura that we're probably about 90 seconds away from being done. So again, just as a reminder, I'm looking at her to be done with the rower a little past 15:30, assuming she keeps the same pace for her 2K that she kept for her 1K.
Elena Sanahuja back on the rower, but she's got a lot of ground to make up. Doesn't know that since she is not aware of what the rest of the athletes are doing, but if she wants to stay at least in that top 6 and not fall down the leaderboard, there's a lot of ground to make up, and you can see her strokes per minute. There's no stop at the top. She really looks like she's trying to crank it now in this 1K.
Which could be a bad thing, right? Like, if we know we struggle, pardon me, in the legless rope climbs, and you think to yourself, I mean, she's got time to finish the workout, right? We've got the time, so we're probably still going to finish. But just to hammer the 1K, just to get ahead and catch up, it could be a bad decision considering what do we struggle at? Legless rope climbs. What's going to degrade that? Rolling too hard and breathing too heavy. So it still should be like, hey, still play your game. You might be behind, but that's okay. We can make up in other areas, but maybe it's not row harder.
Again, after the 1K, we're going to go to descending reps. So you're going from a 2K to a 1K, from a 60-meter handstand walk to 40. 5 in the first part. Now you'll have 4 legless rope climbs, and it'll go 520 and 3 in the final third of this event. Although, if you want to play mental games, and I've always tried to help out the athletes, and I don't know if you have too in the affiliate, that when you have a descending rep scheme, look at it this way. Usually in the first third, the bulk of the reps are about 40 to 50%. They're already done. That doesn't help when your hands are on your knees and you're breathing hard all the time, but at least you know a bulk of the work's already been done. Laura Horvath back onto the handstand walk. She is the first off of the rower here on the 1K.
So Laura got off with 15:45 on the clock, around that time. Don't quote me. Started around 11:40. So her total time for rowing a 1K was 4 minutes and 5 seconds. So if you obviously average that out, divide that by 2, you get a 2:02, right? She averaged a 2:02 pace for 500 meters. So a little bit slower than her, technically about 8 seconds or 6 to 8 seconds slower than her 2K pace. But that's okay. Why? Because she, number one, she made up oodles of time on the legless rope climb. So she can keep that. Winner, right? That's all you need to do is pick a movement that you're really good at and crush everyone else at it. So I'm looking forward to seeing her get done with the handstand walk and then talk about rope climbs with her.
4-round trips here for 40 meters. Again, they're 5-meter increments here. It was Laura Horvath, Annie Thorisdottir, Thuri Helgadottir were the top 3 to get off of the 1K row. So your top 3 are still the top 3. Laura maintaining first place. Annie jumped ahead of Thuri. on that. And again, we see Laura go right to the rope. Doesn't waste any time. Gets off the handstand walk and attacks that first rep. And again, you wanted me to bring up, we're going to remind you, the difference in the legless rope climbs from the male athletes to the female athletes.
Did your timer go off, Jeff? Did your timer go off on your phone? It's
we'll
perfect.
look over at my note.
Okay, so let's watch Laura. Her first couple pulls, she does a hand over hand, and then she switches to what I would call a kipping legless rope climb. Okay, and I think that's her second rep. Now, watch her third and fourth rep. I wouldn't be surprised if she mainly reverted to a kipping rope climb for the whole time. And the reason I think it's important to note, number one, a kipping rope climb is going to technically already be slower, right? So she immediately starts kipping right there. It's slower overall, right? But the nice part is it doesn't involve as much upper body strength and pulling motion because you're using your hips instead of like one hand at a time pulling yourself up the rope. So if you know, and you see this done by some athletes that, number one, are maybe not as efficient at rope climbs or sometimes are heavier, and therefore rope climbs are a little bit harder. But the best part is she's making up time because she's just doing the reps so quick because she's doing a more efficient legless rope climb, but it's slower. But in the long run, even though it's slower per rep, she's knocking them out back to back to back. As opposed to if you watch some of the girls who do a hand over hand, they're taking longer rest in between those reps.
Much like Annie's doing the hand over hand, and she was taking more rest. So Laura Horvath has pulled away from the rest of the field and is probably going to be at least 30 seconds ahead of Annie and Thuri by the time they get back to the rower. Annie still has at least one more rope climb. She's still on the lower left-hand part of your screen, still waiting to get back up that rope. There goes Thuri Helgadottir in the lower middle. And again, Elena Sanahuja is in sixth place, just on the outside looking in. Still on the handstand walks in the lower right-hand part of your screen. And there's Emma McQuaid in the upper left, just going about her first place business overall in the standings.
Yeah, so if we look at the rest, look at the rest that Annie, and again, these athletes are just freaks of nature, so this is not me judging them, but let's look at the rest period that Annie has between rope climbs and then harken back to what you saw Laura do. Now, was Laura's rep slower? Absolutely. But does it matter when you can do 2-to-1 reps compared to another athlete? Absolutely not. So we're still shaking it out. So we're looking at like 15 seconds of rest for each rep.
Thuri Helgadottir back on the rower, so it's Horvath and Helgadottir. So Thuri now again jumps Annie Thorisdottir, getting back to the rower, and in a 500-meter row, and she's had about 15 seconds. It'll be difficult for Annie to catch up with her on the rower. Emma McQuaid gets on the rower after Annie, but the strokes begin just a split second before Thorisdottir. So right now you have a good race for third between Emma McQuaid, upper left, Annie Thorisdottir, lower left. Meanwhile, Laura Horvath, upper center, has a significant lead here, finishing up this 500-meter row, and then Thuri Helgadottir was currently second, lower middle. You still have Gabriela Migala on the rope climbs and Elena Sanahuja on the lower right-hand part of your screen.
So Laura got on the rower at 18:45. I'm expecting her to be done pretty quickly here, considering, there you go. So she rode essentially a 2-minute flat again. So if you look at her row splits, she did a 154 to 156, then she did 203, then a 2 minutes. So she actually negative split in her 500 meter, which is what you want to see in an athlete. And not only is she rowing great splits, but we've already discussed her rope climb, so you can't beat her there. So if you got to beat her in the rower, and you can't do that because she's rowing negative splits.
She'll have 3 legless rope climbs once she gets down at the other end of the floor. Horvath is in second place. McQuaid to her left in the upper part of your screen is in first. Now, will there be enough people in between Emma McQuaid and Laura Horvath, not only in this heat, but in the overall standings for Horvath maybe to move into first with one event remaining today? There you go, quick chalk, and she is taking that deliberate walk right back to the rope.
Quick chalk put a chalk cloud everywhere, irritated the affiliate, and then jumped on that rope.
Someone's mumbling under the breath, get the scrubber. Charge the scrubber.
Get the bulldog, let's clean the floors up.
So Horvath has a significant lead, and like we were talking about, their placing here is relative to the heat, but the other athletes in the event, if there's enough space between Horvath and McQuaid, if enough athletes get in there in between, Horvath could take first place away before event number 6. And there goes Thuri Helgadottir. So there's at least one athlete that we know of between Horvath and McQuaid.
I mean, just looking at Laura's rest, like significantly a little bit, not significantly, I shouldn't say that, but quite a bit less than Annie. And a lot of the other athletes, not to pick on Annie, but a lot of the other athletes, Laura's just resting minimal amounts.
McQuaid on her handstand walks. Elena Sanahuja is just getting back to the rower for her 500 to the lower right, so she is tumbling down the leaderboard right now. Horvath will win the heat 22-34. Helgadottir should finish second. She has 1 or 2 rope climbs remaining, and McQuaid is still on the handstand walks, just as is Annie Thorisdottir on the lower left. So Thorisdottir, lower left, making her way to the ropes, and there goes Emma McQuaid. Let's see who jumps on that rope first.
This is when we yell at him, Jeff. Go, go, go! They're right behind you. You gotta jump up. You gotta do it.
You're like, thanks for all the great advice, like go faster and lift heavier.
Yeah, I'm
Keep
just
going.
the troll behind the mic, just telling you what to do. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me.
So McQuaid and Thorisdottir each have 1 rope climb in. It's the first of 3. Thuri Helgadottir looks like that may be. She's got 1 more to go. You can tell by the arm shake. McQuaid will edge ahead of Thorisdottir up the rope for her second rope climb. And this should be the last one for Thuri Helgadottir, lower middle of your screen. So she should grab second place in this heat. Not necessarily the event, but this big event win here for Laura Horvath, maybe jumping into first place. We'll find out on Games Central, and you can go to games.crossfit.com as well. Thuri Helgadottir in at 23:58 unofficially, as McQuaid is up for the climb, and she'll get third place, 24:09 unofficially in the heat. Again, not necessarily the event. Thorisdottir waiting on the lower left, and Migala onto her handstand walks, and Sanahuja is still on that 500-meter rope. Should be the last rope climb, I believe, for Annie Thorisdottir, lower left-hand part of your screen, judging by the progress bar. 24:45 unofficially for Annie Thorisdottir, a 2-time Games champ. That'll be big for Thorisdottir. She came into the event in 4th, finished the heat in 4th, so we'll see if that's enough to keep her in the top 5 when the rest of the scores come in.
This and that, but really, in all honesty, a great score. Like,
Gabrielle Migala, we talked about Sanahuja losing ground, but Migala still maybe with a couple of rope climbs left. She came in 3rd overall after a 6 and a 3rd yesterday, but that time's starting to really wane on a 30-minute time cap, and she's nearing 26 minutes. And you got to imagine there's some athletes getting in between her, Thuri, Annie at this point. Some other athletes just outside of the top 5 for last chance qualifiers. She still has at least 1 more rope climb to go, and so losing ground, and we'll see if Migala is able to stay in the top 5 before they get to event 6, because there will be 100 more points available. See if Sanahuja can make up some ground as well, but Migala should have 1 more rope climb left. And I believe she got a few no reps in there, because it looks like as far as going up, she's done more than 3, but may have stalled out just before that 15-foot mark. Meanwhile, Sanahuja, see if she can track her down here with about 3.5 minutes remaining in the time cap. 1 more big kip there for Migala, and that will wrap up event number 5 for Migala, 26:38 unofficially. And now, Elena Sanahuja out of CrossFit for Friends, Villarreal, Spain. Finished 8th in the Worldwide Open. I believe this is going to be her last rope climb as well. It's always that last couple feet. 26:59 gets in. Plenty of time under the cap. So it'll be Laura Horvath, Thuri Helgadottir, and Emma McQuaid here in event number 5.
Thuri Helgadottir and Elena Carratala Sanahuja were two athletes on the bubble coming into the day, but Helgadottir put some serious distance between her and the Spaniard thanks to a sizable advantage during the handstand walk. Thuri picks up over a minute during the first round, 45 seconds during the second, and tacks on an extra 15 seconds on the final portion. She beat Sanahuja by 3 minutes in the event, but 2 minutes and 10 seconds came from just the handstand walk.
Helgadottir does not win the event, but she picks up 96 points, courtesy of her second place finish. Laurel Horvath, another event win for her. Emma McQuaid, Karen Freyova, and Annie Thorisdottir rounding out the top 5. Overall standings, we have a tie for first place between Horvath and McQuaid. Annie Thorisdottir sits in third. Thuri Helgadottir now has some more breathing room as far as that 5th and final spot is concerned. And Gabriella Migala, she stays inside the top 5, and she spoke with Niki Brazier.
Gabi, you said that event 5 was the most important event for you to get done, and now it is complete. Why was it so important?
If someone followed my journey, I got cut at the games after legless rope climb event. I was struggling to touch the, beam, touch the beam on top. And I was very nervous about this event because it was 12 legless rope climb in total. But I approached this one as a good test for me, and I think I really passed this one, and I'm extremely proud how it went. And of course, I have no idea how other girls did that, but I'm pretty happy how it went. Like it just proved like all my hard work is paying off, and the progress is there, and yeah.
Gabriella Migala has one event to go to hang on to 4th place. Right in front of her, Annie Thorisdottir in 3rd. Took last year off, but looks like she's picking up right where she left off.
Right, and she has had such a consistent weekend, Sean. She has no finishes outside of 7th place. And I'm just really happy for this athlete, you know, again, to come back from having a child, to have such a great weekend. I think we can safely assume that she's going to punch her ticket to the games at this point, which means she will have her 11th Games appearance, tying Ben Smith with the most all-time appearances ever.
We talk a lot about Annie Thorisdottir, Catherine David's daughter, Sarah Sigmund's daughter. Thuri Helgadottir often gets left out of that conversation, but here she is in 5th place. A little more breathing room, though, but still has some work to do in the final event.
Right, and this is a Games veteran, and so we can expect a great performance from somebody like Thuri Helgadottir, but like you said, she often gets overlooked by all the other daughters. She started this weekend in 8th place, climbed her way up to 7th. She was tied for 5th, then now she holds 5th squarely by 44 points over Sanahuja. You know, she has shown what a solid athlete she is. She's a great Olympic weightlifter for her size, but her size has not always been enough. Well, on event 4, she finished 10th, which that was a damage control event. So to finish 10th was super impressive. And, you know, I think Thuri's having a great weekend.
That's going to do it for our coverage of Event 5 for the individuals at the CrossFit Lowlands Throwdown. Keep checking in to the CrossFit YouTube channel and the CrossFit Games Facebook page, as we will have continuing coverage throughout the final day of competition here with the other 2 semifinals that are taking place virtually, the Brazil CrossFit Championship and the CrossFit German Throwdown. For Annie Sakamoto, I'm Sean Woodland. Thank you so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time.